Welcome back, everyone, for another episode. I'm super excited to introduce Kasim for our third episode. We have a nice little three-part series going on now. And he's been one of our most requested, actually, no, our most requested guests to come back.
You just said that to all the guests.
No, for real. The last two episodes we did, I had loads of more people DMing me about it, just like with their takeaways and whatnot than last time. So you drop some gold, and let's do it again. But for anyone who doesn't know Kasim and has been living under a rock or has shamefully missed our last two episodes, which I'll link down below, you guys can catch up. Kasim has built 6, 7, 8-figure companies, which is insane, and exited 2 of them. And when we did the first podcast like a year and a half ago, you had built 4 at that point. So this man is just churning out 7 to 8-figure companies. And one of the main reasons he's able to do all that and actually still have a life and a family and free time is because he's really mastered hiring and delegation and just wrote an awesome book on it. And that's going to be the bulk of the conversation today. But anyways, welcome back, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, looking forward to chopping it up. So first of all, I think it's been like 6-7 months since we last chatted. What's new in your world? What are you working on now? What are you the most excited about these days?
Man, I own AEO.co. Do you know what AEO is?
Yeah.
So most people don't know that SEO has already achieved forced obsolescence. 65% of all searches result in 0-click.
Really? Wow.
I just bought my children Chromebooks. My sons are 8 and 10. And I've been thinking about their future, and I'm like, the only 2 skills I can see on the horizon are, of course, AI, and then B would be authority building. And so I bought them Chromebooks, and the only thing they're allowed to do with their Chromebooks is use AI. And right now they're using Bolt.new to create video games, which is fun to watch. They figured that out by themselves. I didn't know anything about Bolt. And shoot YouTube videos. And so I buy on this Chromebook for that purpose. And when I'm setting my boy's Chromebook up, the thing that blew my mind, dude, it made me feel so old. The Chromebook default browser, of course, is Chrome. Guess what the Chromebook default search engine is?
What is it, Gemini?
Homie, there isn't one.
There isn't
one. It's not search. It's Gemini. You nailed it.
Yeah.
But it's not. There is no search engine.
Oh, they've removed it entirely.
The whole thing. So you and I, when we use Google, because Google's trying to like segue us into kind of this new framework,
right?
We see Google Search Generative Experience is what they used to call it. I think they're just calling it AI mode now. And then beneath that, we still see search results. My chillins only see Gemini. Like they don't, which is mind blowing for so many reasons, because it's Google's still, it's 80 some odd % of their gross revenue comes from Google search ads, and they're sunsetting their highest performing, not highest. I mean, it's everything. I don't know, bro. It just blows. It changes the way we have to think about the knowledge graph. And so, if you think about that for a moment, the new endeavor is going to be answer engine optimization. And all the SEOs in the whole wide world are saying it's the same thing, and it's not. I have 6 employees who've done nothing but for the last 12 months, for full time, AJ, 1 employee manages the other 5. So 5 employees full time every single day. Each employee does an analysis. Can I show you? Do you want to see some data?
Yeah, for sure.
This is really cool, dude. I don't know how far afield we want to go. I didn't even mean to talk to you about this, but here we are. So this is the task that's being undertaken. Let me share my screen. If you're listening, I'll do my best to kind of explain as we go. And if you're watching, you're going to maybe have a better experience.
If you're listening on the podcast, we'll share the YouTube down below after. But yeah, I'm excited for this. Yeah, because honestly, like I feel like I've heard a lot about AEO recently, but it's like I don't even know where to look or who to learn from because it's so new, right?
So I own the largest AEO community on School. You can go to school.com/AEO. We're about to roll out a free version of it. But this is a snapshot in time. This is June 11th, 2025. The gentleman who did this study's name is Mateen, and I've got Mateen and 4 other people, 5 people doing this full time. So Mateen does 20 queries a day, and we have them across 10 different categories, the usual suspects. So there's like local brick and mortar, SaaS, e-commerce, professional services, info marketing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just happen to use brick and mortar for this particular slide. This is what I use for some of my talks. You can say I was at Genius Network here, which is why this is called Genius. And he does 20 queries a day. So here's query 1, which is best boutique coffee shop in Kingman, Arizona. And then query 2, where to find specialty coffee in Kingman, Arizona. Here's query 3, all the way down to query 20. Now, the reason it's getting that granular is because Kingman, Arizona is a small enough geography to where it's easier to filter out signal from noise, because there aren't so many boutique coffee shops. And the data repository, I think, ends up being far more valuable. So you take that query and you plug it into 3 separate LLMs. And we're really only testing 5 in total. We're testing ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Grok, and then in some instances we'll use Notebook LM depending on the, did I say Claude? ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, Grok, and then in some instances we'll cycle in Notebook LM for deep research. But we test 3 against each other, and to be honest with you, 3 at a time, just because the data analysis when we try to do the numbers crunch is too hard to do any more than that. So you take this one query and you plug it into 3 LLMs. So in this instance, we've used ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini. The LLMs give you an answer, but the question is how did they get that answer? That's the question that we used to ask for SEO, right? Why do you rank number 1? So now I'm like, where did you come up with that answer? So each one of the LLMs gives you a citation. So you can see that we've listed all the citations in the order that they were offered chronologically. So here's ChatGPT's citations, and then here's a list of Perplexity citations and a list of Gemini citations. And if you're listening, not watching, ChatGPT has 5 citations, Perplexity has 8, Gemini has 5, but all of Gemini's are Google local, which makes sense because this is a local search. But hold on, because this gets really interesting. We check to see what the overlap rate is between the citations and Google and Bing search. And statistically speaking, ChatGPT has a 40 to 60% overlap rate with Google. Perplexity has like a 60 to 80% overlap rate with Google. Here's the craziest part, dude. You ready for this? Guess what Gemini's overlap rate is with Google?
It's low, like close to 0?
It's close to 0. Which means Google, Gemini, is not using Google's knowledge graph. They're building their own knowledge graph from the ground up. So ChatGPT and Perplexity are just Googling shit for you faster, and Google is building their own knowledge graph from the ground up using true AI-driven indexing, which means I'm super long on Google. It's why when you use ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or Grok actually is an exclusion because it has its own data repository, but they seem better. When you talk to ChatGPT, you feel like you're like, wow, I'm getting really mature answers. Well, that's because it's going to farm out of Google's very mature forest. And when you use Gemini, it's like, oh, I'm getting these little bullshit saplings. And that's because Google's growing it from the ground up. And the day they want to rip the rug out from everybody else, they absolutely can. The plot thickens. We take each one of these citations and then we study them based off of all the usual suspects. So keyword matching, domain ranking, backlinks, page refs, total domains, page speed, schema validator, blah, 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 blah. The number 1 key performance indicator for SEO is link building, and has been link building for the last 10 years. As a matter of fact, SEO is really nothing but link building. Argue with me if you want to, but you can't, because that's why SEO.co, the Hoth, and PosiRank all exist, because you just go by links and then you rank. We give lip service to the idea of quality content, but that's not what moves the needle. It's link building. Guess SEO is to link building as AEO is to guess what?
I don't know.
Schema markup.
Say it again?
Schema markup.
Schema markup.
Dude, I didn't even know what the hell schema markup was. I built websites 20 years ago, and I remember hearing the words. Schema is basically like the table of contents for your website. LLMs love the living daylights out of schema markup. And then there's a whole bunch of other things too, like there's an llm.txt file that everybody's starting to use. There's 0 indication in my data that makes any difference whatsoever. And so I have 5 employees doing 20 queries a day, every single day for the past year. I have more data on this than any human outside of maybe Monik Bond, who owns Search Atlas. But I think my data is a lot different than his because he and I are going after kind of a different thesis. And we're starting to crack the code on what moves the needle. And so I've launched this community, AEO.co. It'll probably end up being an agency. And I want to be the world authority in answer engine optimization because I actually think it's going to eclipse search engine optimization because search is it's a Pavlovian exercise. It's prompt response. It's linear. You know, like if you're trying to figure out, to use a benign example, let's say you're trying to figure out what car you want to buy, right? You would start very, 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 very top of the funnel, and you might say like, well, what cars have the best safety ratings? And then you figure, and then it would give you 10 results, and you'd have to go through those results, and then you have to go back and pursue each one of them and take your own notes, and then come back, and then you're like, all right, safety ratings aside, now that I know of the cars that I'm looking at, which one is the most reliable? And now it's this linear, tedious, hard, long-term, and it's true for everything that you do. With AI, you give it the desired end result, and the commercial intent behind referred AI traffic is so high, dude, it's insane. My friend John Moran, who was my business partner for a long time, he's the smartest Google Ads mind in the whole wide world. He drives more traffic than anybody I know. He was responsible for $100 million in ad spend when we sold our agency, and now he's doing all sorts of high-end freelance stuff. He works for a private equity group that has a portfolio of like 40 some odd businesses, all positioned for either going public or exit. John is watching LLM traffic. And what's interesting about it is LLM traffic is a fraction of the traffic that he sees, like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. It's teeny, 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 tiny. But if a Google search referral has a 2% conversion rate and a Meta social referral has a 3% conversion rate, a ChatGPT referral will have like a 30% conversion rate.
Oh wow!
Or 50.
Yeah, I figured it would.
There's an article on Ahrefs about this, how ChatGPT's conversion, because once somebody lands on your site, they're already sold. The funnel has been accomplished in app. And so I think AEO is just going to be the thing. It's so much fun. It's also the Wild Wild West too. So I would caution anybody against investing in it unless they're really willing to, do the work, because things are going to change. But now's the time, the flip side of that coin is now's the time to really capture market share and establish yourself as a category thing, because billions of dollars in SEO equity are about to be wiped off the slate. And it's pretty interesting to watch, actually.
Do you think it is really interesting to watch, and that's pretty fascinating that Google Chromebook just eliminated Google entirely. I mean, that's a bold move, but those guys obviously know a lot more than what we do, right? So that's a good sign.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've always been very long on Google. I actually think Google's AI is much farther along than they let on. I remember, I spent so long in the Google game. If you're listening and you don't know this, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world, and I sold it in October of 2022. And I've never run a Google ad campaign myself end-to-end in my life, which means I just really sat there and watched smarter people than me working. And the thing that we kept seeing from Google is they had the technology, like, Meta had 55,000 demographic and psychographic profiling factors for every human in the metasphere. And Congress freaked out, had a congressional hearing. It triggered GDPR, to be frank. At the same time, Google had 72 million demographic and psychographic profiling factors. But Meta let everybody know, and they let us target by it. And Google stayed very, 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 very quiet until the legislation dropped, and they saw where public opinion was. And they're like, hey, and then they kind of veiled the targeting in really creative ways. Google has a very good habit of letting other companies take the arrows, because pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. And they're okay with giving up market share in the short term. But then look what they just did with Google. What's that thing called? Banana Panda?
Nano Banana.
Nano Banana?
Yeah,
dude, it's insane. All of a sudden, Google, which is losing the AI-driven everything game, except maybe VO, rolls this thing out that's the best that anybody's seen.
Yeah, out of nowhere, totally. Yeah.
Out of literally nowhere, because they note that it also came after you have all of this kind of, settling. I don't know who the legislative body is, but people trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do with these copyright issues? And there have been a couple of settlements already. I think the biggest one came from Claude, if memory serves. And then Google's like, oh, okay, we've got case precedent because Google's run by lawyers. We know exactly how to approach this. And bam, they've got the baddest ass AI tool you've ever seen in your entire life. So for those of you listening, bro, I've only ever lost money in the stock market. If you want to make a ton of money, AJ, just do this. Anything I buy, just short 24 hours before. Short a stock, tell me you shorted it. I buy it, God sees that I bought it, and it tanks. Okay, and then I guarantee you $1 billion. This is 100 times out of 100. So I'm the dumbest stock investor in the world. That said, go buy Google. Like, why wouldn't you? Because they're the only company on the planet, except maybe Amazon and Apple, and there's reasons why Amazon and Apple can't do it. They're the only company on the planet with the knowledge graph to actually build AI. Name another company that's been indexing the entire web since the infancy of the web, basically.
Yeah.
There's, Amazon has AWS, but they can't use that content according to the terms of service unless they've modified it. Apple has the window through which the most valuable consumers view the internet world, and they've taken a really weird stance on tracking and data acquisition. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see Amazon or Apple really being able to compete in those ways, at least not anytime soon. Bro, Google's it. They're the only ones that have it. So anyway, that's my tirade on AI and AEO and all that garbage.
Yeah, I mean, when AI first kind of came out, or at least, the mainstream AI came out with ChatGPT, I felt like Google would be the one to take the cake because of just all that data, right? But then it was kind of weird how they lacked a bit. But it makes a lot of sense when you said that they're just kind of more in the shadows.
They're holding back.
Yeah. Well, one more thing I had before we move on, because I definitely want to talk about your book and your hiring secret sauces. What across your portfolio companies, what are some of your favorite ways you're using AI right now, whether it's operations or marketing, or what are some cool things you guys are doing?
Well, gosh, what a good question first. So I own Pareto Talent, which helps find, train, and place what we call AI-enabled EAs.
Mm.
And my very strong opinion is that AI is not a top-down endeavor; it's a bottom-up endeavor. And what I mean by that is, picture for a moment the archetypal warehouse, right? So like you're in Detroit in the 1940s, and you've got the fat cat with the cigar up on the mezzanine, looking down at all the peon workers. And he snaps his fingers or points or whatever and decides what changes and how it changes, and everybody hops to. Okay, so that's the assembly line paradigm through which we view business. Even if people don't want to admit that's how they view it, I know that's how they view it because I watch how people run their companies. It's the mezzanine approach, top down. The problem with that is when Fat Cat starts pointing and saying, I want that whole assembly line. We're building this automobile, and I want the entire windshield department to start using AI, top down. It's a mallet of a solution that doesn't work yet because AI is not sophisticated enough to just say, go press the AI button. What needs to happen is it has to happen from the bottom up. So you've got, Jeffrey McGregor, a third generation Irish immigrant working on the line just like his daddy did and his daddy did, who knows he's building the pistons to the, I don't know anything about cars, dude, so I'm going to say a bunch of words I don't understand, but he's building the one thing that he's known how to build his entire life, that his dad taught him and his dad taught him, which means he really understands it on an integral level. And if McGregor says, you know what, when I insert the piston, immediately after greasing it, there's this point where I'm spending a significant amount of my time cleaning this rim. That could be automated. That part. You can't automate the insertion because the QA requires optics that's not available, and you actually can't automate the pass off because there's no bridge between my machine and the guy's machine next to me. But the rim cleaning can be automated. And that's, you might, I don't know, I think it's a good enough example. I'm just going to leave that as it is. That's the way to roll out AI. So this whole, this weird obsession that people have for just force-feeding AI to their businesses, their employees, their clients, their strategy, it's so catastrophically damaging because they're taking everything that's bad about AI and suffering from it, and everything that's good about AI and not allowing themselves to benefit from it. What needs to happen is you need the people who do the work to implement AI tools on a granular level in sequence slowly. And slowly, by the way, builds equity and snowballs and becomes very quick over time. But that's why I like AI-enabled EA. So when you ask, what's your favorite way to use AI? Dude, get in the weeds. Get in the weeds, and that's the best way to use AI. That's when and there's still tons of human intervention necessarily. I really like, Sean Putty had this great podcast on My First Million where he talked about the K-shaped economy. And the K-shaped economy, the base of the K is the line in the sand. It's right now. And the downward trending K is 80% of humanity falls to absolute zero productivity. They're superfluous to the productive endeavor. Universal basic income, here's money, stay at home, watch Netflix. We don't need you. 20% of people spike to a level and degree of productivity that will make them feel and look like demigods. And that's what's going to happen. But in order for it to happen, you can't just prompt the result. You need a person who understands when to use the tool, how to use the tool, what tool to use. Even if it's a tool using the tool, there's still that kind of interaction. And I do believe that interactivity will taper, obviously, right? It would have to. But then that's when we start to approach AGI. And that event horizon, bro, make your money now. Because when that shit happens, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm glad I'm rich now, dude. I don't know. I really mean that. I feel I'm so intimidated by this new environment. And I made my money when the world was still stupid. And I made all my money $1 at a time. I'm not the smart guys made their money with SaaS. The almost as smart guys made their money with e-com. I made my money in professional services. It's just the dumbest, least sophisticated, but it's all I knew how to do. I couldn't figure out the other two categories. And now, it's funny because SaaS is getting eaten alive, e-com's getting eaten alive, and professional services, it has this moment. We've got, 5 years to really mint money. But to mint money, you have to do things that don't scale. And it's so counterintuitive because our whole professional lives, the whole world's been saying, scale, 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 scale. I used to say those words, man. I used to say, if it doesn't scale, I won't do it. Scale is bad. I own scaleisbad.com. Scale is the death of profitability, not of value, right? If it scales, it's still valuable. ChatGPT scales to infinity, and what ChatGPT outputs is valuable, but it's no longer profitable. You couldn't charge somebody for a ChatGPT laden output, at least not a person in the know. Maybe there's some ignorant people that are still on AOL dial-up, and you could sell them ChatGPT outputs, but they're the people that buy the encyclopedia and the yellow pages, right? Like, they don't know what the hell they're doing. Scale kills profitability. As soon as something becomes ubiquitous, it doesn't mean it's not valuable, it means it's not profitable. So what people need to start doing, if they really want a profitable business, is to focus on the things that don't scale. I'm training and placing EAs, dude. That is the least scalable endeavor in the world. It takes 1,000 applicants to produce one executive assistant. Like, whoa, God, you know what I mean? Like, that's hard. And it's a pain in the ass. And you deal with personalities, not just the EA's personality, but entrepreneurial personalities. And I'm teaching people to delegate. But that non-scalable endeavor, crazy profitable. And so much fun. So if you're a young entrepreneur listening to this right now and you want to know what to do, go find the thing that doesn't scale. Everything that scales, it's so weird that we're still buying into this weird mantra. You got all these idiots. Every time I open my Facebook feed, dude, there's some idiot saying, I built a business in a weekend and you can too. And I'm like, listen to yourself. You just described why it's no longer valuable. Look at how quickly and easily anybody with internet access can perform this task. I.e., look at how and why nobody should ever pay to have this task performed again. You know, like, so is there an arbitrage play? Yeah, but God, is the timeline limited? And you never, ever know when the bottom's going to fall out on you. So anyway, that was a bit of a soapbox, dude, but that's the best I can do with that topic.
Well, no, that's a cool perspective because honestly, I remember once AI started getting big, it was a lot of my agency friends were freaking out, thinking like, "Oh, this is going to really kill our work. Our clients aren't going to want to pay for like high quality work." But you're saying it's the opposite, which makes sense because while everyone's obsessed with automation, like high touch services and relationships and all of that, and like customization, all of that will be what's more valuable, essentially.
Bro, answer your phone.
Yeah.
This is radical as hell, AJ. You ready for the most radical recommendation anybody's ever made in the world of business? If I call somebody and a real live human being answers, my mind is blown. I'm just like I'm so tickled pink. And if they speak in an accent I can understand, you've got me forever. Like I'll propose. At that point, it's just this weird. This I'm trying to work myself out of every facet of my business that's difficult, so I can sip my ties by the beach. Tim Ferriss' dream. It's gone. It's gone. There's no such thing. You know, like, obviously, that was a microcosm brought about by the disparity and understanding that the internet provided and was temporary. And now AI collapses that.
Right.
Obviously, right? So, yeah, man, there's a bunch of people. If you're chasing quick or easy money, there's still a ton of money being made, but it's going to look and feel and smell and sound like really hard work. You know, and people that don't like to work, I don't know, man. You know what? Actually, you're going to be fine because universal basic income is going to be the ubiquitous truth, and the whole world's going to get paid to stay at home and watch Netflix if they want to. I hope. Otherwise, we're going to see blood in the streets. We'll see.
It's going to be. We're living through definitely quite a moment for sure. It's fun to watch, and a little bit scary too. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. Well, dude, tell us about the book Hire: How to Attract, Hire, and Manage the Best Remote Talent in the World. Why did you write it? And I would just love to hear a little bit more about your hiring philosophy, like the main kind of premise of it. Because you said you read all the books on hiring and then created this out of what you couldn't find or what you learned from your own experience. And by the way, for everyone listening, we'll give you Kasim will give you a free copy. So we'll put a link down below and a bunch of resources because he's super generous. So we'll share that as well. But yeah, tell us about it.
Go to thehireBook.com and you can have the audio book, all the resources. I've got a global job posting board with every job board on the planet. All the templates, checklist, cheat sheet, download, and the book. I've got the advanced reader copy and a PDF version that you can have. It's absolutely free. There's no ascension. I'm not going to sell you something on the back end. The book I've spent 20 years in the entrepreneurial world cracking this one code. The one thing I truly am world class at, dude, is talent acquisition. I've built 6 multi-million-dollar businesses. I'm working on my 3rd exit right now. And at the risk of sounding horribly arrogant, there's not an industry I can't conquer. And it's not because I'm smart. It's because I've acknowledged my limitations. I'm so much more successful than I deserve to be if the benchmark for success is intelligence. I built the number one ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I've never run a Google ad campaign myself end to end in my life. I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet, well, in the United States, before I knew anything about real estate investing or lead generation. I own the largest English-speaking Montessori community in the world. I'm not a trained Montessorian. I didn't go to Montessori school. I have a 10th grade education. The only thing I'm good at is talent acquisition. And when you're good at talent acquisition, what else do you need to be good at? Because if you think about the entrepreneurial plight, every entrepreneur is trying to do it all themselves. So if you're like, oh God, I have a finance problem, got to go learn finance or bookkeeping or whatever. Oh no, I have a merchant problem, I have to go learn merchant processing. Oh no, I have a lead problem, a sales problem, an ops problem, a fulfillment problem, an ascension problem, a customer service problem. Got to go learn that thing. But if you get good at talent, it's like, oh no, I have an insert any problem here. Got to go find someone good at that problem. And then I will never have a that problem again along that level of analysis or that category, period. So if you get good at talent, you don't have to be good at anything. You don't have to be good at anything. And that's what I teach. I teach people how to find, the key though, the trick is finding peak performers. I call them Pareto talent. Pareto refers to the Italian mathematician who identified what people call the 80-20 rule. It's not really the 80-20 rule. It technically means the square root of the total participants are responsible for 50% of the output. But that's hard to say and even harder to wrap your head around. So people call it the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule says that 20% of the participants are responsible for 80% of the output. And it's true in every single organic ecosystem, which is insane. So 20% of the criminals commit 80% of the crimes. And 20% of your customers are responsible for 80% of your revenue. And 20% of the employees do 80% of the work. But what people don't realize is that number's fractal. And I didn't know what fractal meant. Somebody in a podcast explained it to me. So just to offer a sterile example, if you have 1,000 employees, 200 are doing 80% of the total work, which makes sense. If I was a kid, I worked at a call center. If you've been at a big company, you can see that, right? Like you've got your peak performers and there's the A team and they really do just crush it. But zoom in on those 200. When you zoom in on the 200, 40 are doing 80% of that work. And when you zoom in on the 40, 8 are doing 80% of that work. And when you zoom in on the 8, what this results in is in a 1,000-person organization, one person is doing about 25% of the total work. And 8 people are... So what's interesting about that is you can index towards those hires. And I've seen this in my own life over and over and over again. When I sold Solutions 8, I sold in October of 2022 to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company for a low 8-figure sum. When I sold, I had 80 employees plus some contractors that were basically employees. So call it like 100 people. One person managed 40% of my revenue. John Moran, greatest Google Ads mind on the planet. One person managed 40% of my revenue out of 100 resources, dude. Yeah, now, wow. What happens when the Ivy League Goldman Sachs douchebag comes in as a consultant and says, oh, wait a minute, look at this. That's key man risk. What do? They mitigate the risk, right? They flatten the hierarchy. When you flatten a functional hierarchy is shaped like a pyramid. The highest value assets go to the top of the pyramid. And what do? They institute minimums and quotas, and they redistribute risk, which flattens the hierarchy. They're asking for and embedding mediocrity into the fabric of their business. It's insane. The only competitive advantage you and I have, being small business owners, is talent. That's it. Because there's trillion-dollar organizations out there right now that have all the money, all the equity, all the time, all the legislation, all the lobbies, they've got it all. But bureaucracy leads to exactly what I just described. A bureaucratic environment cannot honor an individual human as though they were a unique and God-given miracle, right? And that's what the Pareto talent, what's really interesting is the religious truth. The Pareto talent framework adheres to the idea that every human being is truly a miracle. And if you have an employee base of 5 or 10 or even 100, you can run a business like that. Because a client comes in and they're like, oh, I really need somebody who knows how to sweep chimneys. And you're like, dude, freaking Ryan, let me tell you, I actually know the guy, I know his background, I know his education, watched Mary Poppins his whole life, loves sweeping chimneys. I'm going to put Ryan, right? I can treat Ryan and the client, I can couple the miracle that he is to the need. But as a business grows, people can no longer be miracles. People become commodities. And when a human being is commoditized, you nullify everything that's valuable about their humanity. As a matter of fact, here's what's really interesting. Treating a human like a commodity is akin to treating them like a robot. But the problem is a human's not a robot because a human has to sleep and pee and has emotions. And so when you treat humans like AI, you get everything that sucks about humanity and nothing that's good about AI, right? Because the human doesn't have any of the prowess of the AI. And then and we flip it. We treat humans like AI and we treat AI like humans. We're doing both wrong. But if you treat people like true God-given unbelievable miracles, if you hold that expectation so high, that's why it takes 1,000 applicants to produce one EA. Because my expectations are so high, dude. But then I end up with these people that are Pareto talent, and they run through walls. They're the greatest people you'll ever hire in your entire life. And I have a whole framework. There's 7 steps. You're 7 steps away from hiring the best person who's ever been on your team. And that's the book, and you can have it for free.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what, and actually when you first introduced, you walked through it, like 2 years ago when we first connected, and, first time we had you on the podcast. I've been following that structure since then, and now my team is like epic. Like we do like every step of it. The test project is great. And yeah, it absolutely works. But I didn't know you go through that many people to find one EA. That's insane. What are you looking for? How do you spot A player talent? Like when you're going through 1,000 people to find one, like what are some non-obvious things that you're looking for to spot these people?
So you have to hire for will and train for skill. That becomes less and less true if you're like, oh, I need a heart surgeon. Obviously, need somebody trained on heart surgery, right? I absolutely have to have a Ruby on Rails developer because of this specific thing. So those exceptions aside, what's interesting about, especially in a post-AI world, all of those skills, I believe very strongly, and I'm going to say something that's petulant and might offend people, and it may even sound like hubris. I think I could do heart surgery if I had AI, YouTube, and a heart surgeon looking over my shoulder. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sure.
Why couldn't I do that? AI, so even the Ruby on Rails example, skill is becoming on a fundamental level null. You want people who are proactive, thoughtful, problem solvers, follow through, keep to their word, all the things that Mama taught us, right? Like it's the Stephen Covey character ethic versus personality ethic. That's what we're testing for. So like my model, the framework that I give people, the framework I gave your audience 2 years ago, all it does is it's 1,000 people because you put 1,000 people at the top of the funnel, and then you make it really, 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 really hard to get from the top to the bottom. Right. I call them fly traps, lots of little fly traps. And if they get from the top to the bottom, chances are they're one of the best. And here's the thing, it's not hard, it's tedious. It's tedious, but people that can go through that tedium and that can solve those problems, they end up being absolutely invaluable. And the way to get them there is you have to put a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that's worth it. So every employer I know is trying to pay the absolute least they can and get the most they can. You got to flip that. You have to pay 10% more than the high water mark, which is, people mishear me when I say that. They say like, oh God, 10% more costs, I can't afford that. You don't understand my business, my margins, my model. And I'm like, no, you don't understand math. Because when you pay 10% more, you don't get 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100% more. You get 3 times, 5 times, 100 times. Right. And I see that over and over and over again. So the math can't not math. This math's in your favor. And then they say, okay, fine. Well, if the window for this salary is 80 to 100 golden stones, 10% more than 80. And I'm like, no. 10% more than the high water mark is 110. And to get people to swing from 80 to 110 is damn near impossible. But if you can do that, and it's not just about paying money, you pay with a lot of things: respect, time, resources, culture, benefits. Treat people like adults. Be a fun place to work. You know what I mean? Like, honor them. I like to let people work from home on a semi-flexible schedule doing meaningful work. And if you do that and you pay them more than they could ever make domestically, especially in international markets, dude, you get I mean, they're mystical, bro. Like you know what I mean? They're hard to describe or to define. My personal CFO, Steven, he's a college professor in Argentina. Poor guy lost the geographic lottery. If he was here, he would be a CFO of any Fortune 100 company. He is a literal genius. I'm not using that word in the way that we've kind of bastardized it. I mean, his zone of genius is the financial analysis of a company. I have a portfolio of 17 businesses. He's the CFO of all of them. And I pay them more than he'd ever make domestically, ever, by, I hope, significant margins. But he costs me less than a CFO's assistant would cost here. Such a win-win. And he doesn't have exposure to the opportunities that people do here. So I go after international talent, pay more than anybody's willing to pay in that market, and then just love on people, dude. Like, actually treat them like real-life humans. Let them do work. Delegate projects, not tasks. Don't micromanage. And if you do that, that's the key. That's the easy button.
Yeah, I mean, I think this international talent thing is just such a win-win arbitrage because you can pay above the market rate, but still be saving money from what you would pay if you're hiring locally
Yep.
or in America, right? So it's like, um, yeah, it's definitely a win all around. So you mentioned a couple things just around how to actually keep them happy. So semi-flexible schedule, obviously paying them well, benefits. Like what else when you think about retaining these people, right? Because obviously A players can get it, they can get a job anywhere, right?
Yeah. So my favorite thing to say, everybody's question is, how do I retain top talent? And my answer is, you don't. You don't retain top talent because top talent doesn't want to be retained, and top talent wants to grow. As a matter of fact, there's a litany of studies. I have them cited in my book that peak performers prefer growth to comp. So even if you pay more and more and more and more, at a certain point, if they're not growing, if they're not learning, if they're not expanding, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And again, going back to hierarchies taper at the top. So as your business grows, you're going to be able to ascend a lot of people. You're going to be able to grow them within your organization. But a lot of people aren't going to have room to grow. So what I tell people is, one, give me 2 years, which isn't too long an ask. And what's nice about the 2-year time horizon is, generally speaking, the cost of hiring, training, and then upboarding an employee is recouped and then profited within the 2-year window, depending on your industry. But that can be a general truth. You have to do your own math. I ask, give me 2 years, and before you leave, find and train a replacement. And if you're willing to do that, I'm going to help you leave. So Colin Schmelbeck's my favorite example of all time. If you go to Twitter right now, or X, the most famous Google Ads mind in X is Colin Schmelbeck. Colin Schmelbeck was my employee. And when I hired him, I knew he wanted to go off and start his own agency. So I said, hey, buddy, give me 2 years, find and train a replacement. He did exactly that. I benefited from an extraordinarily brilliant human for 2 years. And then when he went off on his own, I very publicly started to refer him work. All my employees saw it. And what was really interesting, and it came full circle, he started to refer me work too, which I didn't necessarily see coming, but he didn't want to build a big agency. He wanted to just be like, the assassin freelancer type. And so he'd skim all the best clients off the top, and then anybody who had like difficult infrastructure issues or attribution issues, or whatever, he'd refer back to us, which those are my bread and butter clients. I had another one, Danish Ashrafi. He was this Pakistani VA. He was just a kind of a freelance kid who I hired full time to like do digital handyman work for me. He ends up getting so good, and he grew his own business. He spun off. I'm referring him work all the time. At one point, he shoots me an email, and he goes, hey, man, I have a client that's way too big for me. Do you want him? He sends me Jay Abraham. I end up on the phone with Jay Abraham's CMO because a Pakistani VA somehow was referred Jay Abraham and decided, dude, I can't. This is too big a bite for me. I can't take it. So be very public about the growth opportunities in your business, but also outside of your business. Because what ended up happening at Solutions 8, we became an aspirational company. I had people come work for me that could and were making more freelance than I could afford to pay them, but they wanted to be in the organization, they wanted to learn, they wanted that peer group, and it helped them build pedigree. They got to spin off and launch their own agencies. I have so many friends, people that I used to employ, that were able to build their own agencies on the back of what it is that I had. And so don't try to retain, try to grow people. Be the launch pad for them.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And you mentioned about, you'll get that ROI back within 2 years. What about in the first few months? Like how soon are you expecting someone to reasonably make an impact? And also how soon do you cut it off if it's not working out? Like that balance between if someone's kind of just, yeah.
Yeah, second question first. I hire slowly, fire quickly. If somebody's not a fit, and dude, I'm actually getting more and more petulant as I get older. Like if I just don't feel like you're a fit, I'm like, hey buddy, this doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
We talk, and now I don't pull the plug right away because I don't want to be cavalier with people's lives. But first, I hire everybody on a 60 to 90 day trial, depending on the role.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask them, let's say this doesn't work out. Flash forward 60 days, and for some reason, it's not right for you, it's not right for me. What kind of position are we putting you in? Are you walking away from a 20-year, 10-year job that you're about to get retirement from? I want to make sure I'm not playing with people's lives and they're willing to take the risk. Once we're there, if they're not cutting the mustard, then, and this is what entrepreneurs are really bad at, hyper communicative. So we hop on. I learned the rule of 3 from Ryan Dice. First time you make a mistake, it's my fault, obviously. Hey, AJ, you made a mistake. I know you're smart, conscientious, proactive human, and you never would have done that if I gave you the resources or explained to you why this is so important. So can you and I talk about this because this is really important for me and it's an absolute deal breaker and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Cool. Put it in writing. Got it. Second time you make that mistake, it's your fault. Hey, dude, we just had this conversation. You got to tell me what the hell's going on. And if you can convince me that there's a disconnect or that you can do better, then we'll have another at bat. If not, we're over. And the third time you make a mistake, you're fired. And I don't mean a mistake like I dropped the glass and it broke, right? That's like human error. But I mean like negligence, not paying attention, not doing it right, just failure. So real honest, not even honest failure. What would you call it? Dishonest failure. So that's the second question. The first question is, people are never going to run faster than they do in the first 90 days. And so what entrepreneurs do really, really poorly is they ramp people up slowly. They're like, hey, come on in, sit down, take it easy.
Right.
You're going to spend your first 2 weeks watching training videos, and then you're going to shadow Sally. She's been here for 80 years, and she'll explain everything to you. And then once that's done, we'll give you your first client, and but they're going to be small, and you're going to be able to just. They're also made of rubber, so if you drop them, they'll bounce. And then if that works out, then we'll start to. And it's like, dude, by day 90, that person is like lulled to sleep. They're never going to run faster than they do in the first 90 days. So when I hire people, if there's 10 things a person can get done in a day, they should always have 12 on their list. Now, I'm very clear. I do not expect you to do 12 things a day. This is a 10-unit day. I want you to get 10 units done. But it's up to you to manage expectations and communicate as to what you're pushing and why. Because you're a proactive human and you went through my hiring process, and I know you're capable of doing that. And Parkinson's law says that work's going to expand in the time allotted.
Right.
So don't allot so much time. Like, make sure they always have something to do, and that puts them into a cadence to where they're really. And dude, trust people. If you hire somebody for a role, throw something at them. Throw something big. Like, I have an EA right now. I own AEO.co, as I mentioned earlier. My EA Julian, who now isn't an EA any longer, he wrote the book, created the community, and manages all 5 data analysts.
That's amazing.
From the ground up, dude. He built a whole business literally from the ground up. And, I started to test him out in the very beginning. We tried to build a couple different things together, and I saw what he was good at and what he wasn't. And then, bam, I've got a whole business in a box that the guy built. It took a year, like it takes time. But if you're willing to invest that amount of time, like, man, you get a lot out of people.
Yeah. So you'll typically, you'll start someone as an EA just to give them a variety of things and see where they shine, and then promote them to something else over time based on that.
I call it the 262 framework. So this is why EA is my favorite role, because it's the only role where you're allowed to not have a job description. And the 262 framework. You give somebody 10 things to do. They're going to suck at 2 of them. They're going to be horrible. They're going to do 6 just fine. Check the box. Great job, kid. And they're going to do 2 better than any human you've ever encountered your entire life. And what the entire professional world has been trained to do, and I don't know why, is to go focus on the 2 things they suck at. And to say, we're going to get you there, and here's a performance improvement program. And you know what I mean? It's like, stop that. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it spends its whole life thinking it's stupid. Stop making them do those 2 things. Keep the 6 on their plate if you need to keep them busy, but go focus on the 2 things that they're extraordinary at, and build a whole role around that. My first EA became my director of automation. My second EA became my director of social. My third EA became my CTO, my business partner, and now my best friend. Like, it's unreal, the incubator capability of the EA role if you use it right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So once you have these people, once you're building your team out, what are some of the mistakes you see people make with delegation, or some of the best things you've learned? Because actually, it's one thing to actually find the right person, but then to actually manage them and delegate properly and like get out of the way, right? And make sure things don't like fall or blow up in the process when you're passing things off.
Yeah, well, I think things can and will. And so here's the thing that sucks is people delegate something and then it doesn't go the way they wanted it to, and they're like, I'll never do that again, which is. There's no way, especially, let's say that you've been doing whatever you're doing for at least a decade. You expect this, green bean, fresh newbie to come in and step up to the plate and knock it out of the park and impress you. That's not going to happen. So delegate projects, not tasks. If you're delegating tasks, you're a micromanager. You're not really delegating at all. In the beginning, delegate smaller projects. Safe, it's training wheels. It gives them the ability to take a swing, and then you get to see how good they are. And this is the most important part, authorship creates ownership, especially for peak performers. All of us hate backseat drivers. And so if you sit there over a grown-ass human's shoulder and they're creating something and you're like, oh, you know what, change that square to a circle and change red to blue, and I don't like where you put that line, consciously or subconsciously, they take their hands off the wheel and they're like, all right, AJ's driving. And now for the rest of that project and their life, that's your responsibility. So if it fails, if it works, if it doesn't work, that was your thing, dude. You told me change the square to a circle. And even worse, if it does work, that's not theirs. They don't have any pride of ownership in that, right? So you give people projects, you let them do the project, and the only thing you're allowed to critique is that which is objectively wrong. Hey, just so you know, dude, the studs have to be 18 inches apart because the building code says 18 inches apart. And if they're not 18 inches apart, the inspector comes in and we got to redo the whole damn thing. So the 18-inch rule is an objective truth. But, oh, I don't like the color of the maple that you used. Shut your mouth. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to the process. Let them establish a level of ownership, because when you do that for people, they build an equity in the company that's difficult to put a value on. But dude, I saw people coming back. I had a young lady get promoted out of our knowledge base. We had a knowledge base at Solutions 8 where we just captured everything that everybody needed to know. And she was promoted into another role, and she kept coming back to the knowledge base and like cleaning up the tiles and, you know, making sure like people were, she would correct nomenclature. And she was an absolute nut because it was her baby. And she took it and ran with it, dude. And she didn't do it the way that I would have done it. She didn't use the tool that I would have used. She didn't build rules the way that I would have. I didn't love it in the beginning, to be honest with you, but it ended up being way better than anything I could have created because I just let her take it and run with it. Mm-hmm. So authorship creates ownership. And, you know, people complain all the time, man, employees won't do anything without my say-so. Well, whose fault is that really? You know, Go take a long, hard look in the mirror. Bet money that's a dance you started.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating a tone of dependence, right? If you're always there just to kind of wag your finger at them.
100%.
But it's hard because I think what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, what's happened, like if I think back to myself and times where I've been like too hands-on rather than getting out of the way, is like you'll catch someone making a mistake and then you subconsciously tell yourself, oh, now I need to watch the next time they do this, right? And then it just like creates that, kind of reinforces itself. But I think what you said at the beginning of that is really wise, that you just have to kind of be okay with mistakes, right? Like know that some balls are going to get dropped, and that's part of the process of handing that off. So if you're kind of okay with a little bit of that messiness, then it makes it a bit easier.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, super powerful stuff. I know we're out of time now, but I appreciate you as always being generous with your time and sharing your wisdom. And for everyone listening, watching, definitely grab the book. We'll put the link down below, and there's a bunch of cool resources. He's got like a whole global job board of all the different places you can hire talent online, job posting templates, and a lot of good stuff. So thanks for sharing all that, man, and looking forward to doing this again sometime.
Appreciate you, AJ. Take care, buddy.
Awesome. Take care.
Alrighty, sir.
Hey, I'm AJ Quesada, co-founder of Revenue Boost. Really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do, make sure to leave me a comment and definitely subscribe right now so that you're notified of all the cool stuff we're doing, all the cool tactics, tips, and strategies that we share here on the channel. We help B2B companies scale to 7 to 8 figures. We've helped over 400 clients, and we can help you too. And we share some amazing stuff on the channel here. So really hope you enjoyed. And if you do, let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe. All right, back to the video.